Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dark Natter, the podcast that likes warm cherry pie and strong black coffee. I'm John Richter.
And I don't really know how to follow that. I don't know whether should I be doing a funny voice, or I'll just tell you I'm Liam Martin. But
I mean that is helpful.
Pretty boring.
I thought you were Mark Frost, and we were going to try and do.
I don't know what he sounds like. Yeah,
you could have done anything. Do a Mark Frost impression.
I'm Shagrot.
Very good. Throwback
there you
episode.
Go. I'm Shagrot.
Captain Shagrot to you, son.
Yeah, I'm Liam Martin, and welcome to Dark Natter.
And we are here, as always, to talk bollocks for approximately 1 hour about a piece of dark fiction, to debate between us and discuss its merits, dissect its inner workings, and decide whether it merits a place inside the creepy corridors of the Hall of Pain.
See, that was a laugh, but in reverse.
It's very like a what's it called? The Black Lodge.
Exactly.
Like someone from the Black Lodge.
Yep. I'm not sure if I can do better on that.
No, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. And if this wasn't enough of a clue, this somewhat surreal introduction, the subject we're going to discuss this week is, whose turn is it?
I don't even know anymore. You just normally tell us all about it, and I kind of take the piss occasionally.
That's basically the established formula. Yeah, so in other words, we pretend to take it in turns.
It's actually one subject to the other. It's hard to say. It could be your turn because last time it was
Abby's turn.
Community driven,
community
and the time before that it was my turn. So I suppose it's your turn, but
I'll take it. I'll claim the credit.
Yeah.
We are, of course, here to discuss the TV multi-decade spanning surrealist, bizarre, comedy, horror, crime, drama series and associated spin-offs, Twin Peaks.
Yep.
We've saved you a big hitter. This is the penultimate episode of the show, of course, of Series 1 of Dark Natter, so we thought we'd bust out the big guns and talk about one of, not to give any spoilers as to whether it's going to successfully end up in the Hall of Pain or not, but one of our favourite shows.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, does it get into the Hall of Pain? We'll see. Who knows? Probably not, knowing us. But
watch this space, and you'll find out.
Yeah, maybe it does. 100% record, remember, but this could be the week. Even though we both love it, as we've already established.
And we are the sole panel. So what would basically happen is one of us would have to do such a crap job of explaining why it's good that they convince the other one that it's not good, and they decide not to put it in.
I think I'm up to that task.
You're going to take that challenge head on. Well, in that case, I'm going to let you start then. How would you sum up, what is Twin Peaks then? What's it all about?
So Twin Peaks is a TV show directed by David Lynch, who traditionally makes feature-length films, but this was his foray into television, and essentially it's kind of a very, very odd, weird, violent, just nightmarish whodunit.
Yes. It's a...
Yeah, I mean, that is the central premise is the very first scene, I believe. Fisherman goes out, discovers a body wrapped in... What? Why don't you do the impression?
She's dead, wrapped in plastic. It's Jack Nance, that, isn't it, from Eraserhead?
Jack, that's right, yeah. One of an old Lynch's stalwarts. I think he's...
It's funny, isn't it? Yeah, they have this... The directors have these little... It's a bit like Quentin Tarantino with, Uma Thurman and Samuel L. Jackson and all them lot. Like, they have the same people in all this stuff, but I really like that Jack Nance is in loads of Lynch things. Like, I watched Dune the other week, and he was in that, unexpectedly.
He's got a very small part in Wild at Heart as well, if I remember correctly. And that was the first Lynch thing I ever saw.
Brilliant. What a film.
Weirdly. But so yeah, it basically finds a dead body. The body belongs to a local girl named Laura Palmer. And
Palmer.
That is kind of, who done it? Who murdered her? What, how did she die? What's going on? So they get the FBI in to try and crack the case.
Absolutely. But and I think it's maybe that in and of itself, that set up as, it's a TV series that is a whodunit murder mystery, at least at face value. That's what it opens
Yes,
as.
Yeah.
What I don't always forget and can never fully appreciate, because I only watched it, we were like 8 years old when it came out in 1991. You were probably 9, maybe even 10.
Yep.
You're older than me, aren't you? You're like an older...
I would have been 9.
An older boy. I only ended up watching it, I think, in the noughties at some point, because loads of people were like, Dave, John, you've got to watch what do you mean you've never seen Twin Peaks? You'd love it. Are you crazy? And of course, as we all know, because I always bang on about it, I'm a massive Silent Hill fan, and Twin Peaks is a huge influence on that series, as it is also a huge influence on flipping everything, like pretty much all of TV and almost all. And I guess that's my point, really, is you perhaps if you're in this generation or younger, you don't realise how influential Twin Peaks was at the time. Like, there'd never been a whodunit murder mystery TV show apart from cheesy soaps like blooming Who Shot JR in Dallas.
That's right, yeah. And also just the fact that it's a Lynch production as well, because he's not exactly... He'd done Dune by this point, which was kind of his attempt at making a sort of major, sort of mainstream motion picture, and that didn't exactly turn out as planned, really.
It was a flop.
But, prior to this, he had made Eraserhead, he had made Blue Velvet, which is very brilliant film, actually, but not the sort of thing you'd imagine seeing
on mainstream telly.
You couldn't imagine Murder, She Wrote. What's her name? Who was the main woman in Murder, She Wrote? What's her name?
Miss Marple. What was Angela? Or is that the actress? Angela Lansbury, or is that the actress?
I think that's the actress. Yeah.
I can't remember. But you're exactly right. Yeah, it wouldn't be the kind of safe, cozy. It's like a dream, innit? It's like, what if David Lynch made an episode of a kind of cozy soap murder mystery? It's like, a whole series. Sorry,
Jessica Fletcher.
That's it. Well done. Well, I wonder what if she'd have solved it, because bloody Dale Cooper never managed it, did he?
Well,
what a dick.
We'll get there.
Sorry. We'll get there. So, I mentioned Dale Cooper there, and I immediately regret slagging him off, because he is, of course, one of the greatest TV show characters of all time. I think he only comes in very late in the sort of pilot episode, if I remember rightly. So a lot of that episode is spent showcasing the town's immense kind of grief at Laura's death. She's the prom queen. She's beloved by a lot of the townsfolk, and people are just reduced into kind of tears. They can't believe, they're absolutely devastated, not just her parents, but, even like the police deputy. You've got Deputy Andy, who at the crime scene is just blubbing his eyes out and can't stop crying.
Yeah. This is a sort of small town, small community. Everybody kind of knows everybody else, but so we don't see Dale Cooper for a while.
Yeah, he finally is called in, and we see him journeying into the town, and he's on the. Is he recording? It's like a dictaphone message. He's not speaking to a phone. He's got a dictaphone. It's almost like he's recording like a journal, but he's directing the journal for the attention of someone called Diane, who certainly in the original series 1 and 2 in the early 90s, we never ever meet this person. We never see Diane. We never really find anything about her. We just know that Cooper is constantly talking to Diane. I'm entering the town of Twin Peaks. And he explains that he's there to investigate this murder, the body of Laura Palmer that's been found. And then, from episode 2 onwards, it basically follows Dale Cooper's investigation. And he is just like the most kind of positive, enthusiastic, happy. It's kind of hard to put your finger on it. He's not irritatingly happy all the time.
No.
He's just he seems like a really lovely, a great bloke to be around, doesn't he? And like audiences across the world kind of fell in love with him, really.
Well, yeah, because there's always that cliche, isn't there, in these kind of cop shows where when the FBI get called in, there's always big conflict between the local law enforcement and the FBI, and they kind of address that initially, and Cooper kind of puts the sheriff at ease, straight
he just
away,
knocks it on the head. You assume he's going to be this slick, because he is very slick. He's got kind of slick back gelled black hair. He's very handsome. He's in a suit. You assume he's going to be steaming in, I'm taking charge of this investigation. But instead, he's just really nice and polite and friendly and respectful, and just tell
Sheriff Harry Truman they just get on straight away. Yeah,
exactly, which is a real swerve. And there's so many good bits even in that first couple of episode kind of, I think, if I've got my facts right, the pilot was almost like a double episode, but I might have got that wrong.
Yes, yeah.
And there's like,
I mean, for me, it starts with the music. Initially, I fell in love with Twin Peaks. The theme music is just sensational, and not each character, but a lot of different characters, particularly Audrey is one that springs to mind, have got their own kind of themes, their own kind of soundtracks, and the music is absolutely like spectacular all throughout. Very dreamy.
It's Angelo Badalamenti, isn't it?
Yeah, with a couple of songs in there by
Julie Cruz.
Julie Cruz, yeah.
Go on, do you want to say that bit again?
No, just scrap it.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I'll cobble it together. But you're right. That soundtrack is a great listen, isn't it? And it puts you immediately in that dreamlike state.
It really does, yeah. It has got a very dreamlike quality. Lynch kind of famously, a lot of his work, it sort of explores the realm of dream, doesn't it? And it puts you into that kind of dream state straight away.
And you kind of get Cooper's. Again, maybe you're expecting him to be this kind of like slimy city slicker who doesn't like all the backwards, mountain folk kind of ways. But actually, he falls in love with the place, doesn't he? He's talking about how great. Hey, you got to tell me, what are these fantastic trees you got here, Sheriff? He's blown away by all the nature that he's suddenly immersed in.
And the coffee, the best pie, and like you said, it's just such a positive force of good.
He goes to they've got a diner, haven't they, called the Double R. And again, it's like this almost perfect idyllic kind of friendly local neighbourhood diner with smiling beautiful waitresses, and all the locals go in and they eat the cherry pie and they drink the coffee and everyone's happy. And there's that bit where he sat down and he takes a sip of a coffee and he just says, "That is, excuse me, a damn good cup of coffee." Almost as if he's so overcome that he can't contain himself with how good this cup of coffee is.
And so with Cooper coming in and starting to investigate, he's kind of like he's kind of like the viewer, isn't he? Really, he comes into it. He's investigating. He's seeing this place for the first time, and as the investigation rumbles on, things start to unravel. And actually, this perfect little town isn't quite as perfect as you'd imagine. Everyone's got their own secrets, and especially Laura Palmer, the girl who was killed.
The blonde, blue-eyed, innocent, beautiful prom queen who was dating the captain of the football team. It turns out that he's like a really troubled young man, and she was, potentially drugs and all sorts of. We should probably do a spoiler warning. We won't give away some of the absolutely key things, like we're not going to say who the killer was, because there's no need to. But we will unavoidably be spoiling a few things, like, for example, right now, that Laura Palmer obviously has got this kind of troubled troubled, almost like an alternate life where she's having multiple affairs with multiple different men. She's doing drugs, and she's clearly not as sort of picture perfect life as perhaps everyone thought she had.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of just kind of what we discover in. It's not even that her life isn't, it's not the drugs, the reality side of it. There's some real kind of weird supernatural stuff going on as well, and you get a glimpse of that in the pilot episode,
like literally a glimpse,
kind of introduction to Bob. And
well, maybe we should. I suppose just before then we get onto the supernatural element of the show, which is where it does get distinctly Lynchian. I suppose another Lynchian kind of trope that the series revels in is, as part of that set in Twin Peaks, you have got a cast of absolutely crackpot, crazy, lovable, mad characters. Like, it'd take us all episode just to list them all, but the log lady, a woman who literally just carries a big log of wood around that she talks to and tells people that the log's got great insights into the world and the cosmos. You've got what's her name? Is it Norma, the lady with an eye patch?
Yeah.
She's got an eye patch.
Nadine.
Sorry, Norma's the double R lady. Yeah, Nadine's got the eye patch, and she's kind of this really needy, clingy wife to the guy called Big Ed, who works runs the local petrol station and seems a bit kind of downtrodden, like a really nice man, but he's been a bit.
She's obsessed with silent curtains, and it's just
why?
Yeah, really bizarre.
She wants to make a set of drapes that will run completely silently, and that's all she ever talks about. And who else is there? Arguably one of my favourites is Dr. Jacoby.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, he's very sort of odd character, and like you said, there are so many. You struggle, wouldn't you?
And just little choices like he wears. I don't think it's ever directly explained or mentioned, but he wears 3D glasses, like one red, one blue lens throughout the series. Well, why does he do that? Just a weirdo. You know what I mean? Just loads of. And so, anytime you ever watch a show, play a video game, read a book, and it's about a quirky small town with weirdos living in it and some sort of seedy underbelly, that's a rip off of Twin Peaks.
Exactly.
Everything came from Twin Peaks. It's just so influential. But sorry, you wanted to move on perhaps onto the supernatural side that starts to creep in.
Well, no, the thing about Twin Peaks is we were talking about this before the episode about how, what we were going to talk about, because quite frankly, we could be here for hours and hours and hours dissecting every little detail, because, and people have done that. People, a lot not smarter than me, because there's just so much going on, and there's so much subtext, and just so many minor details in just odd threads that go sometimes seemingly nowhere, and other threads that take you into the supernatural realm. And it's just a very, very... It's an easy show to watch and kind of understand to an extent, but if you really want to sort of get your head round it, you've got to really kind of go down the rabbit hole, don't you? The central premise is simple: murdered girl, detective trying to crack the case, but to really unravel it all is where do you begin? And
maybe that kind of reflects an element of the duality of how it was created. So we've talked a lot about Lynch. I think although I referenced him earlier, I probably forgot to mention the show is co-written, co-created by Mark Frost and David Lynch. Lynch is the director, the man behind the camera. Frost is the writer, the kind of lead writer. And I sometimes get the impression, although this is probably doing a massive disservice to Frost, and I think he probably does get almost like forgotten about, given how famous Lynch is. But Frost is writing the outwardly visible story, the kind of soap opera, melodrama, murder mystery, and a lot of the characters and their interactions and who's having an affair with who and who's... And then Lynch is layering on top of that all this kind of symbolism and metaphor and visual craziness that, multiple layers of meaning, or maybe there's no meaning and it's a deliberate that you just left to ponder it for decades without an answer. But it does feel like it's working on... I know it sounds really corny, doesn't it? But it's working on many different levels.
Well, it's funny you say that, because there are a couple of companion books to the Twin Peaks series.
Course.
There is... You might have them to hand. I don't have them to hand.
I've got two of them, but I've never...
Well, I just wanted to make a point that Mark Frost, he wrote a couple of these companion books.
Yes, and they're good.
And they kind of... It was just about that kind of conflict almost between Lynch and Frost. Not conflict, but you know what I mean. Just what I want to say about the books, it's just that I think Mark Frost kind of tries to spell some of these things out for you to make it a bit more digestible. And I believe Lynch has kind of, with a sort of, twinkle in his eye, has kind of said, that's his interpretation of it. It's not necessarily my interpretation of it. So just that point you said about, the kind of dual creators, they maybe do have slightly different visions for...
Yeah, I almost feel like Frost is a bit more literal. You've got the Secret Diary of Laura Palmer that I think came out in the 90s, and then more recently he's done the Secret History of Twin Peaks, and then Twin Peaks: The Final Dossier, and those two books are like beautiful, made to look as if they're like an FBI file with loads of inlays and photographs, amazing. But they do read very much like he's trying to tie up every last plot thread and tell you what happened to every last character.
Yeah.
Whereas you get the impression that Lynch doesn't really give a shit about any of that at all, because it's all symbolism and metaphor to him.
Exactly. Well, this is what I'm saying. It's such a difficult thing to talk about. There's so much going on. Where to next, my friend? Where to next?
Maybe you were going to touch on the kind of supernatural angle, which we perhaps haven't got to yet, but that very much starts to creep in, perhaps more so towards the end of series 1.
Yeah. So...
And I'd like you to do it all backwards, if you can.
Okay. Oh, Christ. Bob. There you go. That's backwards.
Very clever. Very good. a palindromic summary of... Well, you just kind of... You start to see different characters introduced. There's I don't even know where to start. You see in the pilot, you see a brief glimpse of this character that's known as Bob, who's kind of an entity, a force of evil, who wasn't he played by like just one of the... Yeah, the way I understand it, which I hope this is not a kind of apocryphal story because it's a cool story, is Frank Silver was like the wardrobe guy, just backstage, like behind the scenes guy. They'd written, I assume they'd written all of season 1, but they hadn't remotely decided what they were going to do with season 2 yet, or they were, they didn't know fully what direction they were going to take this in, so they hadn't cast this part yet. And then, quite by accident, they caught a reflection of this wardrobe technician, whatever the correct term is, in the mirror during a shot, which obviously, in theory, ruined the shot. But instead, because he just looks really cool, like Frank Silver is, to me, one of the coolest guys. He's got a denim jacket on and that really like lank grey. Is he of kind of Native American heritage? I think he is.
Yeah, he kind of looks like he could
But instead of
yeah.
having the like long dark hair and looking very kind of dignified and regal and like Deputy Hawk in the police force, the police department of the Twin Peaks, he instead looks really kind of creepy. He's got that really sleazy kind of grin, evil looking eyes. And I think Lynch just saw this reflection, was like, boom, you're cast, you're playing Bob, you look amazing. Which is just fantastic. And he actually sadly passed away, I think, definitely before they started the third comeback season.
Yeah, it was in like the mid-90s.
I think he died, which is really sad. So yeah, Killer Bob, or just Bob as he's known, in effect we start to feel the presence of some supernatural forces at play in the town. And you see this through strange dreams that people either talk about, or in the case of Dale Cooper, we actually see him start to have these strange dreams and kind of visions. And he's, by the way, he's not a kind of logical, old school, by the book FBI detective. He's fully embraces all these kind of quirky methods. At one point he's saying the names of suspects and chucking a stone at a bottle, and if he smashes the bottle, that means they're the prime suspects. But we start to see these things, and we see this character Bob. it's almost like Laura Palmer's mum seems to be channeling him in some way, and she keeps seeing him hiding around the house.
And we see there's a little fella, the man from another place, who we see in the Red Room, again, as you mentioned, in Dale Cooper's dream, who speaks backwards, so that explains that joke.
You've ruined the joke now. You had to explain. Oh, I don't know. Yes.
In just one episode, it just ends up with him like dancing, doesn't it?
I think that might even be at the end of the first season. I think when you
is it at the end of the whole season?
Well, yeah, when you watch it back, I was surprised to find that series 1 has very little of the kind of Bob and the Black Lodge stuff. All that comes in very much towards the end of the series, and then kind of spills over into season 2, where it starts to ramps up very rapidly. But yeah, the iconic little kind of I apologise that I do not know the correct term anymore, and I'm going to Google it. There you go. Hang on. Correct term for person with dwarfism. Oh, okay. Little person is apparently an acceptable term. Little person, dwarf, cool. Or LP, which is quite cool. So yeah,
yeah, and then there's like the one-armed man, and
who seems to have who
is linked to the little person. Actually,
he seems to have at least 2 personalities, doesn't he, Mike? Like, one of them is just this like, why have you come to arrest me? What's going on? He's upset and hysterical, and then he's got this other personality that's really confident and dark and speaking about dark things. And doesn't he say, whose dream does he appear in when he reads that amazing poem? The Fire Walk With Me poem. Oh, I might, if I can find a clip of that, I might kind of try and splice that in.
Through the darkness of future past, the magician longs to see one chance out between 2 worlds. Fire, walk with me. We lived among the people. I think you say convenience store. We lived above it. I mean it like it is, like it sounds. I, too, have been touched by the devilish one. Tattoo on the left shoulder. Oh, but when I saw the face of God, I was changed. I took the entire arm off. My name is Mike. His name is Bob.
Mike? Mike? Can you hear me? Catch you with my death bag. You may think I've gone insane, but I promise I will kill again.
But yeah, the show definitely, but certainly by the end of the first series, is a full-blown surrealist. It's gone dead weird. And I think people by that point were either on board and in it for the ride of where's this going to leave, or perhaps some of the weirdness had started to put a few people off, and the viewing figures had started to tail off a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean there are lots of subplots as well, aren't there? Sheriff Truman is secretly seeing Josie Packard,
who owns the sawmill, and just all this kind of melodrama, soap opera stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. There is a kind of very sort of soapy elements there, aren't there?
Definitely. It's certainly all that kind of...
Just mixed. And the one thing as well, like a lot of the cast, very attractive.
Oh, yeah.
Which was kind of a main, staple of American primetime TV, wasn't it? And soap operas in general, unnaturally attractive. Not everybody, of course, there were some that it probably wasn't suitable for them to be, but all the sort of younger people in the show,
there was like a stunningly beautiful cast of, and a lot of people were kind of iconic, weren't they? Like Audrey, you mentioned earlier, Audrey Horne, who's like the daughter of the town's kind of local tycoon who's trying to demolish all the forest so he can build some apartments or whatever it is, and she's this like sort of pampered princess. What's the word? Dreamy, not airheaded, because she's very smart and sort of manipulative, but she seems to walk around in a bit of a dream state, in a bit of a daze, and she's always smiling. She's got her own theme tune, but she's like a complete sex symbol at the time.
Yeah, and the guys as well, and so it had that kind of real soap opera sort of sentiment, but with just this really weird and also quite violent.
Crashing juxtaposition. You could literally within one episode you could go from a scene where someone's plotting to take over the sawmill, and because she's having an affair with the aforementioned tycoon, and just real like dynasty, however you say it, dynasty Dallas kind of stuff. And then the next scene would be a bonkers dream sequence in a red room with a one-armed man saying poetry backwards while there's a dwarf dancing behind him. And then, do you know what I mean? And then the next scene would be some like daft comedy, silly comedy bit with like Deputy Andy and his receptionist at the police station, who he was trying to sort of, who he obviously was keen on, but kept blundering into, walking into walls, slapstick. So it was like this crazy mashup of all these different styles. But I think that is part of its charm.
Totally, yeah. But it's also one of the reasons why it's so bloody difficult to kind of quickly skate over what Twin Peaks is about and what kind of happens in it. It's very hard to explain it to somebody, isn't it?
You just have to watch it. If you're listening
you just have to watch it. And if you like the first episode, you're probably going to like the whole thing.
Well, maybe that's a link into season 2. So season 1 started in 1990, heading into 1991, and we're talking a show that was a massive, mega success. So it was, tens of millions of viewers, one of the most watched things on the TV. It was a huge, in North America, this was the show. Everyone was talking about it at work, water cooler chat, who killed Laura Palmer? But then the general consensus is that season 2 loses its way. And one of the reasons it loses its way is because the ratings started to fall. The network, whichever TV network it was that was broadcasting it.
It's on ABC.
Oh, ABC. There you go. They put a lot of pressure on Lynch, and Frost as well, I'm sure, to reveal the killer. And Lynch, I think, has stated in the past that their original intention, it wasn't just that they wanted to string it out to the end of season 2. They potentially were never going to reveal the killer, and it was going to be this unsolvable mystery and that was almost like not the point of the show. But they came under that network pressure, and about halfway through season 2's kind of 20 odd episodes, you actually do find out, and we won't say it here, who killed Laura Palmer. It is revealed,
and that's actually worth talking about as well. That the first season was only 8 episodes, and as you say, it became so popular that the second season, over 20 episodes, 22 episodes in the end. Albeit that might have even been premature because it kind of got cancelled, didn't it?
Yeah, it just sort of dropped off a cliff when. So Lynch, in effect, I'm never quite sure of exactly how this worked, because he didn't direct every episode. He was in and out. He was almost like he'd started the thing and then he'd dip in. But once he was forced to reveal, or they were forced to reveal the killer, he basically kind of sulked off and wasn't really involved with the show anymore, is my understanding. And you had a different writing
and
team.
then it became really shit. Albeit it became very funny.
Yeah, some of the...
there was some really funny stuff in it, but it just wasn't very good.
And it was padded because... essentially, the whole point of the show, who killed Laura Palmer, that mystery been solved, well, what's the show about? The show is now just about a load of characters who you like doing stuff.
The show is now a soap opera.
Correct. Exactly. There was no real, in a way, they didn't really have a show. They brought in a new villain who's all right, but he's a bit, a bit weak, a bit silly.
It was a bit pantomime, I
Definitely.
Found.
So I think if you love the characters as much as we did, you probably will sit through series 2 and enjoy even those latter episodes. But it's definitely worth watching the first 10 or 11 up to the point of the big reveal.
Yeah, and I mean the bit afterwards, I did actually find it a bit of a struggle just to carry on watching, because it did. I mean, I was always going to watch all of them, but my interest definitely waned.
Yeah,
It just became a bit shit, but then it did get better right at the end, because Lynch kind of came back to finish the job.
And he did manage somehow to out of the ashes of what he created, he did manage to drag something decent in terms of the season 2 finale. We probably will spoil that here because that does lead into the plot of season 3. So if you don't want a spoiler for the end of season 2 finale, then tough, because you're getting one.
Yeah. You can't really avoid it if you're going to talk
season
about
3 in any level of detail. So in effect, Dale Cooper goes into the Black Lodge, which is this strange, dreamlike limbo place where a lot of these spirits and supernatural things reside, ostensibly with the intention of destroying and defeating Barb, the sinister spirit that's kind of ultimately responsible for the death of Laura Palmer and various other killings, which is why he's first dispatched to investigate, because he's been involved with some of those other cases. And Dale Cooper emerges from the Black Lodge, but as we see in the very final scene, what emerges is not lovely, lovable, happy, optimistic, positive Dale Cooper. It's some twisted doppelganger who grins evilly and smashes his head into the bathroom mirror, drawing blood.
And you see Bob's reflection.
Brilliant
as well.
So good, that bit. So good.
Yeah.
And you're left, and having sat through about 10 episodes of shite, I was left on a real, like, oh my God, I can't believe that's the ending. It's going to finish on that note. That's awful.
Yeah, because that was in, 1991.
Correct.
And then there was a film after that, which we'll talk about in a minute, but the actual kind of what happened to Cooper isn't really addressed until Twin Peaks came back, 25 years later. Yeah. So it's a hell of a cliffhanger.
You just almost, whether it was by design, well, it wasn't by design because the show got cancelled, but you were given this incredible sort of cliffhanger. Not so much a cliffhanger in the sense that, yes, obviously people would want to know what happened. It was almost just a sense of unresolved. People knew that the series had been cancelled. People knew that Lynch's involvement had been a bit, his creative vision had been somewhat undermined, and people loved Dale Cooper, and so they just wanted this sense of closure, I think, from this beloved series that had come and gone so kind of fleetingly. But then, if they thought they were going to get that closure with the movie, well, they didn't, did they?
No, not at all.
1992.
So like you said, so Lynch came back to direct that final episode. It was a great episode, really good ending as well. And then he made the film, but I don't really know the full story surrounding the film, but it kind of felt like maybe, I think it's great, by the way, Fire Walk With Me came out in 92, but it kind of felt like his hands were tied a little bit because not all the cast wanted to come back. I think Dale Cooper, for instance,
Carl MacLachlan wasn't necessarily
was worried about being sort of typecast by this point. So he was in it, but it's not about him at all, really.
No,
is it?
He's almost like a cameo, really. And the film.
It's interesting. Sorry, just one more point about the film. It's billed as well as a prequel and a sequel to Twin Peaks, which is only Lynch.
Yeah, and maybe we talked about how, if you take Lynch away, you get Frost, and you get something that feels a little bit like a soap opera without the sinister edge. To an extent, in Fire Walk With Me, when you took Frost away, you got something that was just all sinister, all dark. And I think fans of the series who loved the whole cherry pie and hot cup of joe, they were a bit flummoxed and sort of, well, what's this? This is not the Twin Peaks that we used to like. This is just some like sordid kind of sleazy town with people stripping in the local nightclub and a not gratuitous, but quite lengthy focus on the murder scene. Because it is a prequel. Yeah. And the other issue with the film, to an extent, is it's a prequel, but we already know who did it. So it doesn't quite have that same intrigue about.
You're just kind of seeing sort of Laura's final days almost, aren't
Correct.
you? And
which is compelling. I agree with you. It's a very,
very,
film.
But it's, as you say, you know what's going to happen, and it ain't nice.
No.
So.
And I can see, therefore, even though we like it, I can see why it was a flop, and it was a flop. Even though it's become critically quite well regarded recently, at the time, it wasn't well reviewed and it didn't make a load of money. So it almost felt like that was kind of the final nail in the Twin Peaks coffin, really.
And there you go. That's the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Or is
and what we're now going to do is leave it on a cliffhanger for 25 years. And then you can come back. Well, sorry, I'm going to ruin it now because there is one more thing I wanted to say about Fire Walk With Me.
You carry on.
I've got the pacing all wrong. I've blown the cliffhanger. I'm like the network. I'm like ABC. I'm ruining your creative vision. Is, of course, Fire Walk With Me does introduce us to some of Dale Cooper's FBI colleagues. We see David Lynch himself, as we saw in season 2, I think, as Gordon Cole, the FBI kind of director, who, not only does he have the iconic David Lynch voice, but he has a hearing aid, and he can't hear very well, so he shouts a lot. It's quite funny. But we also meet Philip Jeffries, very briefly, played by David Bowie, which is like, what a weird scene that is. You just...
Really weird, Great scene, actually. I like that.
McLachlan's in the, whatever you call it, the FBI, building. He's having a conversation with Gordon Cole, and then Jeffries just kind of teleports in, says this really frightening, weird monologue where he's like, "Who do you think that is there?" in a crap American accent, like pointing at Cooper. And then he just teleports away and buggers off again.
Well, he says, "We're not going to talk about Judy."
We are not going to talk about Judy. And it's like, what? Who is Judy? What's he talking? What's going on?
So it's just more questions.
Yeah, pilot. It's like we said, like this idea that the film was going to answer your questions. Nope, it just piled about 500 more onto the stack.
And you've got another FBI, Chester Desmond, who's played by Chris Isaac, the "I don't want to fall in love."
I don't know what to react to first, really, because your rendition was beautiful. Beautiful. But I didn't know that was Chris Isaac. I've never made that connection before. That's so funny. I used to, that song, just without going into too much detail, the video for that song was probably the closest you could get to like freely available porn when I was about 12. So, yeah, it was a good song.
Yeah.
Who was that woman? Anyway, we'll never know.
So there you go. Yeah, it's
over.
It's worth a watch, though, isn't it?
Definitely.
If you enjoy, it's just like you said, pure Lynch, isn't it? And that's great for me.
Unadulterated Lynch, right, blasted into your eyeballs.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not.
And then, amazingly, you thought you'd never see it, but 25 years later...
Yeah. Like...
Twin Peaks, The Return.
We sometimes talk about like how the world feels like it's gone completely mad bonkers in the last few years. Like loads of really weird shit that you never... bad stuff like Brexit and bloody Donald Trump and... Leicester City winning the Premier League. It feels like we're in this like weird parallel universe. But there have been one or two really ace good things you never thought would happen, and this is one of them. Twin Peaks making a comeback after 25 years. Like I could not believe that it happened, but it did. It was great.
And every episode directed by David Lynch. Every episode written by Frost and Lynch. Yep. So this is pure. This is what you want.
Proper. And
proper.
Probably the best moment of the whole thing was in the very first episode when... and where do you even start to try and explain season 3? If you thought series 1 and 2 were mad,
Christ,
this is a new level of complete, barely comprehensible insanity that just jumps around all over the place.
Absolutely brilliant as well.
In my opinion, Twin Peaks The Return is the best thing that's ever been on TV. The best TV series of all time. I loved it. I couldn't wait for the next episode every time it ended each week.
It's interesting because in terms of something that's stuck with me, you can't fault it. It's for weeks, months after watching it, I'm thinking about it. I'm still Googling stuff about it, going on to forums, watching videos.
Listening to the soundtrack.
Yeah, what more can you ask for? You don't do that for just any old shit.
It's absolutely, but I do think you have to have seen series 1 and 2 to get the most out of it, because you won't get that. It almost had this tragic element of like, so we're seeing all these characters 25 years later, they did a great job of assembling the cast and getting virtually everyone who was in the original series back, you know, other than the ones who were tragically dead, like Frank Silver, who played Bob. And we were lucky because maybe 5-6 people did this series and then died. So we got this real sort of fortunate last chance to see the likes of Miguel Ferrer, who played Albert. Loads of people I'm forgetting, but people who just, you wouldn't have, if they'd have made this a year later, we wouldn't have been able to see them in the show. So it was...
Well, the log lady is a good example, because she, as you learn, is quite an important character, really, in kind of in the whole supernatural sense of it. And she visibly is, you know, terminally ill when
she's on an oxygen canister in the show, and I think that was kind of real. And really poignant scenes with her, because she's talking to Deputy Hawk over the phone about her impending death, and it's kind of like the actress is talking about a real mortality. And like, you know, when you see Big Ed and he looks dead old and sad because he still never got together with Norma, and his hair's grey, and he's kind of tried to cut it in like a cool, trendy way, which looks a little bit tragic because he's clearly 70-odd. Like, I find it really sad just seeing them old. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Because I guess we mentioned it earlier. Well, I mentioned it earlier about how sort of attractive and young everybody was.
Yeah.
And
the
people who were kind of supposed to be young and attractive, and now they're not. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, hey, I just want to see attractive people on TV, but I just feel like that was a conscious decision to make it almost soap opera-like, to cast these people, and then now you do see them, and you sort of see their mortality, and
it's quite moving. But I'll tell you, who doesn't look old, who barely looks like he's aged a day, is Kyle MacLachlan himself, who's in frankly incredible shape. His hair still looks spot on. He still looks handsome and dapper in his suit. But not only is he playing Dale Cooper, who is manifested in this kind of shell of himself that people mistake for this local, local sleazebag called Dougie Jones, and he just kind of shuffles through a lot of the series as this, you know, he's barely able to string a sentence together, kind of, what's the word, sort of mentally subnormal guy. But he also plays the doppelganger, who's been running riot for 25 years pretending to be Dale Cooper, and has got really long hair, as if in the style of Bob, and just looks like the most evil, badass, horrible motherfucker that you've ever seen.
Really badass as well. And that's the amazing thing. It's just, what an actor.
How he was not... He should have been shouted... They should have invented new awards just to give them to Kyle MacLachlan for his performance in that series. It's criminal that he didn't win more awards for it, because he's amazing. He's like a revelation.
And there's the contrast again with Dougie. It is almost like over-the-top comedy character.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Bad Cooper, who is just over-the-top evil character. It's
brilliant.
From one scene to the next.
So it's like...
You know, one...
Yeah.
Just mad.
Yeah, and you genuinely felt... It wasn't like, I'm sick of seeing Kyle MacLachlan here. He's in every scene as one character or another. You didn't feel that at all, because you believed that they were different people, because he was so different.
Yeah. I agree.
And not only him, you know, it's a great cast. Lynch himself is in it in quite a major role, which is brilliant. And of course, Laura Dern, we finally get to meet Diane in the flesh.
And again, Laura Dern is someone we've seen in a few other Lynch films as well.
Of course, another popular kind of Lynch actress. Diane is not... The character Diane is maybe not what we expected her to be like.
No. I was about to do a spoiler then, but I won't. But
I guess there's an element of that character exists in order to maybe show us the extent of how horrible, evil Doppelganger Cooper has been, because of all this damage that he's inflicted on the people around him who loved him previously. One of whom, of course, was Diane, who is now this kind of embittered, cynical, hard-drinking, chain-smoking bitch, basically. What about you? Did you have any other fave characters in the return?
What, from the new series or just overall?
New series.
Well, I guess little Horn.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Ike the Spike.
Ike the Spike was awesome.
Yes. You meant Jerry Horn.
Jerry Horn. It was just
Ace.
Absolute fucker, wasn't he?
And in the new series, he just spends the whole thing kind of wrecked, doesn't he, on his homegrown kind of weed that he's trying to sell. He's just
no. Sorry, I'm talking about...
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Right, yeah. You mean Dick Horn.
Yeah.
Richard Horn. Yeah. Bloody hell. What a absolute piece of shit he is.
Real piece of shit, yeah.
Awful. What a and you know how, probably you as well, but I love villains.
Yes.
And I tend to find myself kind of siding with them a lot of the time. So it's I always wanted Dick Dastardly to win the wacky races. I always wanted Wile E. Coyote to catch that stupid, annoying Roadrunner. Because there's an element of the villain is the underdog. So I always kind of want the underdog. But occasionally, maybe you could argue, maybe the best villains, even I hate them. And I flipping hated Dick Horn. What a monster.
You do make a good point, though, about Jerry Horn, who is... You see a little bit more of him. That's Ben Horn, the local tycoon's younger brother. Yeah, he's just a massive stoner wreckhead in this, isn't he?
He's grown a massive... But in the first season, he's like a slimy playboy.
Yeah.
Clean cut. Well, not clean cut, but certainly clean shaven.
Clean shaven,
and sort of slick. Whereas in this one, he's he's just like a massive bearded old... stoner.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And there's that character development, isn't there? Some of the characters seem stuck, lost in time. Norma still runs the Double R. It's almost like they've been living in repeating the same year over and over again for 25 years. But then other people, like Bobby Briggs, is no longer this rebellious football player. He's a cop.
Yeah, deputy sheriff. Yeah, he's actually one of the characters you really kind of grow to like, don't you, over time? Because initially, he just seems like a bit of a piece of shit, but I think his character growth over the whole thing.
Yeah, even in series 1 and 2, not just this one. He shows
exactly.
He's got a nice side, and Dr. Jacoby has restyled himself as Dr. Amp, hasn't he?
Yeah, sort of like one of those kind of conspiracy theorist jocks,
pirate radio nut job. It's you gotta dig yourself out of the shit. I might try and get a clip of that if I can.
It's 7 o'clock. You know where your freedom is? Coming to you live and electrifying from Studio A, high atop the escarpments of Whitetail Peak, the roof of the American Hindu Kush. This is Dr. Amp, doing the vamp for liberty, climbing the ramp to justice, and lighting the lamp of freedom. So, what's on your mind tonight? I mean, I'm going to tell you what's on mine. We're sinking down deep in the mud, and the fucks are at it again. The same vast global corporate conspiracy. Different day. You can't see it without a cosmic flashlight. Guess what? I've got one. Oh, yeah. And its beam, it penetrates the igneous rock of ignorance. It flips that rock over, and there they are, exposed, wriggling, squirming, crawling on their bellies like foul maggots, frantically racing back to the cover of darkness that they so crave. We're coming for you. Yeah, we're coming for you. Let's just see what they're cooking up today.
I know what I'll be cooking up.
Know the ingredients. Just read what's on the box. In fact, read between the lines. What's lurking in that toaster waffle, those muffins, that frozen children's treat? Poison. Deadly poisons. That's what's there. And what's waiting for you? Cancer. leukemia, autoimmune disorders, pulmonary embolism, warts, psoriasis, eczema, cardiac arrest. Where are the cops when we need them? Anorexia, body image bullshit, microbial toxins, bacterial toxins, environmental toxins, our air, our water, our earth, the very soil itself, our food, our bodies poisoned, poisoned. Yes. Huckleberry extract and clean boiled water from the pure artesian springs of Whitetail Peak. Yeah. Fuck that. Acai berry shit from the Amazon. In the immortal words of Pete Seeger, if I had a hammer, guess what? I've got a hammer. You must see, hear, understand, and act. Act now. Friends, we all live in the mud, in the shit. Shovel your way out of the shit. This is your shiny gold shovel. 2 coats, guaranteed. Shovel your way out of the shit and into the truth. Dig yourself out of the shit. $29.99. That's right. Only $29.99 plus shipping. Accept no substitute. Get yours now.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to think of the guy's name actually. The Cockney guy as well, who you sort of see later
Freddie.
on. Freddie, that's it. Freddie, yeah.
The green glove.
Just really fucking weird.
He's stupid. That's really stupid, actually. That bit, but still good. But yeah, we certainly. I wouldn't propose we do any more kind of spoilers of what happens in season 3.
I don't think we could if we tried, mate. So I won't worry about
Yeah, it'd
it.
be a struggle. The one thing I will say, 2 things I will say is one, watch the whole thing 'cause it's amazing. But in particular, episode 8
Yes.
is like a work of absolute genius. It sounds very pretentious. Oh, it's like a work of art. It's incredible, but it just is so good and so unique and so unlike any episode of mainstream TV you could ever imagine being created. It's like it's a must see.
Yeah. Got a light.
Got a light. Oh, and that little sort of poem that he says over the radio, and he's like, "This is the water, and this is the well. Drink full and descend. The horse is the white of the eyes and dark within." And it's like, the reason I can recite that from memory is because, you said about it's haunting you and staying in your mind for months afterwards. I couldn't stop. I was walking around my house saying that, saying that poem to myself. Yeah, for bloody weeks.
And it's got one of the maddest sort of final showdowns ever, hasn't it? Not that episode, just the series 3 in general.
It's brilliant. The arm wrestling bit.
Oh, that's great.
The actual finale, the final episode, is one of the most haunting things. Like, I literally am getting goosebumps now just thinking about the ending.
I'm exactly the same. I'm getting goosebumps.
It's so good. And what was the other thing? There was one other thing I wanted to say about season 3, and I've forgotten what it is. Damn. It'll come to me later.
I thought another really sort of intriguing kind of subplot almost was Audrey Horne again. You kind of see her.
That was just really almost like paper thin, the amount of information you were given. Like, so few scenes with her in, and she only came in very late in the series.
Yeah.
Like, fans were bloody up in arms, like, where's Audrey? And then what you got from Audrey was just kind of horrible. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't there wasn't one single shred of, oh, good old Audrey. Oh, yay, she's back. Oh, she's so cool.
But there almost is when she does her dance, Audrey's dance in the Roadhouse, which is kind of this sort of sleaze bar, isn't it?
But then that goes horribly wrong.
And again, with that thing about the cast members aging and, you know, not being these sort of young, beautiful people anymore. And I don't know whether that's a direct commentary on that kind of thing in general. But yeah, the whole Audrey stuff is really sad and unusual. And I just don't really know what it was all about.
Sort of troubling. Yeah. And I have remembered the other thing I was going to say, which is there was a moment, the one thing that would have been incredible if it had been, you know, if sadly we hadn't been robbed of the opportunity, is there was a theory knocking around, or a belief when the series was being aired weekly, that he'd managed to get some scenes with David Bowie reprising the role of Philip Jeffries, filmed before Bowie passed away. And that, sadly, it wasn't true. So there were no new scenes with David Bowie in, which is really sad, because I'm sure there would have been if he hadn't died. But we did manage to get, despite that, an appearance by Philip Jeffries, which has got to be seen to be believed.
Yeah.
Just amazing stuff.
Yeah. If we were to say what Jeffries is in this, do you think that would make people want to watch it more or less?
Imagine a man that has spent 25 years or more immersed in the darkest, most kind of supernatural, alternate reality, limbo, hellish, disturbing, backwards, time-disrupted, brain sanity-fraying places you could possibly not even dream of in your worst nightmares. And imagine if that man was once a capable FBI agent, but his identity, his mind, his soul, his very physical self has been warped and twisted into something that's almost like transcended humanity and transcended the boundaries of space and time. And if you could meet that entity and confront it and have a conversation with it, what that entity might look like and how it might appear to you, you wouldn't expect it to be a giant kettle. Would you think that's fair to say?
I think that is fair to say, yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, madness. Speaking of characters then, what about overall from the original series and beyond? Who are your favourite characters?
Can I propose that we do a countdown and then we shout our favourite one out? Because I reckon we've got the same one.
Okay.
But we might not have.
We might not have, okay. But go on then.
So I'm gonna go 3, 2, 1 and then we say it, right?
Okay, yep.
3, 2, 1.
Leo. Yes!
That's so...
I knew it. I knew he'd have the same one.
And Leo needs a new pair of shoes. Just what a... I mean, he's basically
another absolute piece of shit.
Yeah, monster. But yeah, what a guy. So it's like he's basically quite a bad actor, I think. Like, I don't want to be too harsh on whoever it is who plays Leo Johnson, but
Eric DeRay or something, isn't it?
Because he's quite wooden, but that kind of makes it. So maybe he's a genius and that was deliberate. But do you get what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
He's meant to be this intimidating guy, but he doesn't put any emotion into it at all. So he just comes across as he's just completely, almost like a sociopath.
I love. Have you ever seen the Saturday Night Live sketch? Because Kyle MacLachlan hosted it at the height of Twin Peaks fame, and they do a Twin Peaks sketch in that. And Chris Farley plays Leo Johnson in it. It's really funny. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. And then, Leo. Where'd you start with Leo? Like, there's that whole bit when he gets. Does Shelley shoot him, and that results in him? He gets shot by someone else. And that results in him being sort of disabled in effect, and almost in a
vegetative
speed. He's in like a waking coma where all he can do occasionally is like mumble the last word that someone else said.
That's right. Yeah.
And does he just go new shoes? He's always talking. I
think
about
he does,
like,
doesn't he? Yeah.
And so Bobby Briggs moves in with Shelley, who is his wife, Leo's wife, and they basically sort of, I mean, they do abuse him, basically, don't they? They use him to get a welfare check, like a disability allowance that they then just blow on, partying and enjoying life as much as they can, while Leo just sits there in a chair kind of dribbling. And then there's, as you might expect, there's finally that brilliant moment when he snaps out of it and comes back. It's like a really great horror moment.
Yeah, Leo. he's so good. Absolute piece of shit, but yeah. Both of our favourite characters.
He's like what Richard Horne was in the comeback series, like the local, quite young, almost so young that you might feel like he can be salvaged, but then when you witness his behaviour, you're like, oh no, he can't be salvaged. He's a fucking awful piece of garbage. Just kill him, please. I
think also you mentioned him earlier as well. Albert is another one who's up there. Albert has. There's one scene he has an absolute brilliant speech because he's very rude, very short with people, and he seems like a real arsehole. And so him unlike Cooper, we were saying about the FBI coming in and normally not getting on with the local law enforcement, well, he kind of is that person that comes in and doesn't get on with the local law enforcement. He's exactly real short shrift. But he does make this amazing speech to Sheriff Truman. I choose to live my life in the company of Gandhi and King. My concerns are global. I reject absolutely revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love. I love you, Sheriff Truman.
Oh, I see. So what you mean is like, this is not him slating him.
This is him like explaining his philosophy. He's just really short, sharp, but his whole being is founded on love. So it was an amazing speech. I loved it.
And the fact that he ended up as almost like a main character in the comeback series.
He did, yeah. And then, like you said, passed away.
Oh, it's really sad. And I'll tell you who did a great job in Series 3 was Thingy. Oh, bloody, from Scream, Shaggy, what's his name? Who played Bill Hastings.
Oh, Lillard, yeah. Matthew Lillard.
Lillard. He does a great job in Season 3, doesn't he?
Yeah, really good. It was really nice to see him again, actually. Because I love Scream. It's one of just a really sort of easy slasher to watch, isn't it? Sort of fun.
Yeah. And he was great in that film in many ways.
Yeah, so it's nice to kind of see him again, really, because he doesn't seem to be in that much these days.
Well, one last thing that we wanted to mention is Twin Peaks, if you haven't gathered by now, is a complete riddle of impenetrable symbolism, metaphor upon metaphor, bizarre, surrealist, crazy images and scenes that don't make any sense and baffling monologues. And there's lots of it. There's lots of it to dissect, especially with a third season now. So people have pored over it. There's been lots of quite highbrow, analysis that I've read or heard or listened to podcasts. And equally, there's a lot of people who would say, you're wasting your time because the whole point of it is meant to be it's a subjective experience and you just take from it whatever you take from it and there's nothing there to be understood. There is no grand message. But, well, we found someone who thinks differently, didn't we?
Yep. Twin Perfect on YouTube, a 4-hour video about Twin Peaks, the meaning of Twin Peaks. And it's really, really good, very convincing and not what I was expecting.
No, I basically went from I am completely sceptical about this claim that you're going to sort of explain Twin Peaks and what it's all really about, and I'm going to watch your video, Rossiter, because I like Twin Perfect because they did a big Silent Hill thing years and years ago. So okay, I'm going to every so often I just click on his channel to see what he's up to, and within half an hour, 40 minutes, I was like, I am quite convinced by this. Yeah. This is quite a compelling analysis. And by the end, I was like, you're a genius. Get this man a knighthood. He has completely deciphered what David Lynch was trying to do, and he's cracked it. And everyone else who's ever tried to crack it has failed, and he has succeeded. Amazing.
It's really amazing, yeah. And interesting as well, because do you want to know? Do you want to have your own opinions, your own, interpretations important to you? But, which, they probably are to some people, but yeah, I just think it improves it so much when being able to it gives you an excuse as well to go back and watch it again, with that knowledge in mind.
I'm pleased that I watched it all without having his opinion, but I don't feel like getting his insight, which I think is pretty much spot on. I don't think getting that has spoiled it in any way. No. If anything, like you say, it's almost enhanced it, because I think what Lynch was doing is really clever.
Yeah. So definitely worth a watch. It's 4 hours long, and there's been a couple of videos he's made since then, kind of answering some fan feedback. But so you're talking 5-6 hours to watch all of it, all of the Twin Peaks stuff, but it's well worth it. I think I watched it in one evening. Yeah, and
it'll fly by as well. It'll fly by because you just like I was
one kind of holy shit moment after another, isn't it?
So yeah, we'll. I couldn't recommend that enough. Twin Perfect's recent at the time of recording, which is early 2020, recent analysis of Twin Peaks and the true meaning of Twin Peaks, which is what an achievement to have potentially figured out what David Lynch was secretly trying to tell us all along.
Yep, and if you don't believe it and you're not interested in knowing that, you'll still get a lot out of Twin Peaks. Just trying to figure out what's going on by yourself. You don't necessarily need this to appreciate it, but for me, it has enhanced it.
Agreed, completely agree. Well, as you said, there's millions of things that we haven't even mentioned that we could have just. This could be like a 10-hour special. But we should probably go to bed. So all that remains, Liam, is to decide whether, for you to decide, because this is my pitch to you, does Twin Peaks merit a place in the Hall of Pain?
No.
Please explain.
I'm just being weird, like Lynch. What I actually mean is yes. See. I don't know what it was.
That was very good. You went, was that backwards yes? Or was that like Spanish? David Lynch. I loved it. It doesn't need to be explained. That's the point. Don't explain
it's 100% in there. So good.
Every character is going in, and the place, and all the staff.
Yeah.
Lynch himself, he's going in. Frost is in there. Leo Johnson's getting his own special throne room.
Definitely, yeah. The Black Lodge.
The Black Lodge is in. Although not the little dwarf guy, because they fell out, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, yeah.
Him and Lynch fell out, so we replaced him in the third series with a talking tree.
Yep. There you go. That's a real thing.
That'll teach him.
As you do. But yeah, it's just... I'm almost... My head's spinning, almost thinking about it all. There's just... As I said, there's just so much that you could talk about. And so I apologise if I've not been able to offer much insight, but where do you begin? But it is just so good. Just take my word for it.
No, I feel the same. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface.
Yeah,
we've jumped around all over the place, but it's almost an impossible task. Thankfully, Twin Perfect did a much better job.
He did, yeah.
So watch his video.
Definitely.
But he's not as funny as us.
No. Yeah. Although he does a better Lynch impression.
Are you serious? I'll fight you.
Yes, I am. So it does a better one than me, that's for sure. But there you go. The penultimate episode. And arguably the worst yet.
It's in the can.
Yeah.
Which means that the next episode, by that logic, is going to be the ultimate episode.
It will be. And who better to talk about than someone we both love?
We've just done David Lynch, or, Twin Peaks, but manifested in the form of the seminal work of David Lynch, who's cast a shadow over pop culture for decades. He's influenced Twin Peaks in here, have influenced so many things, so much of the horror medium, how could you think of a more fitting finale for a series about dark fiction than David Lynch and Twin Peaks? Well, we got an answer for you, and that answer is...
Are we saying it now, or...?
Well, we said it on the last episode, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not really a spoiler, is it? But
it's H.P.
Lovecraft.
There you go.
That's going to be a tough one. There's a lot to cover, a lot of work, a lot of things influenced by him and his writing, and a lot of controversy as well that we'll attempt to cover in a couple of weeks' time.
There you go.
But until then, it only remains for me to say, because we've done 23 episodes without a proper sign-off, and I've finally come up with one.
Hey.
All that remains for me to say is... But this is the end of the episode. Bye.
See ya.
See ya.
Thank you for listening, everybody, to another edition of Dark Natter. If you enjoyed the show and want to support us, you can do so by leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast listening service, or even better, by telling your friends, family, and fellow dark fiction connoisseurs about us. Please also follow us on social media, where you'll find us on Instagram at Dark Natter Podcast, or on Twitter at Dark_Natter.
And this is John here, just interrupting. Sorry, David. If you're interested in hearing more about my own dark fiction, please check out my website at www.jon-richter.com. That's JON-RICHTER for more information, or just search for Jon Richter on Amazon.
That's enough from you, John. Thanks once again, everybody, and see you next time for the finale of Dark Natter Series 1. Goodbye, everybody.